Yeah, I got it.
Mr. Chairman, whenever you're ready.
All right. I'm going to call the Planning Board and Zoning Commission meeting to order of August 27th, 2025. Can I have a roll call, please?
Bloomer? Gray?
Yep.
Tupin?
Yep.
Eckelzell?
Yep.
Boise?
Yes.
Conley?
Yes.
Di Benedetto?
Here. All right, approval of minutes. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes of the
August 13th.
August 13th, 2025?
I move to approve the minutes of August 13, 2025 as written.
Second.
Any discussion, any corrections? I have one correction on page 2, underneath item 4, with the urban renewal, discussion. The last paragraph before B, where it says next steps, the planning board to review scenarios, it should be the urban renewal agency to review scenarios.
I wondered why we were in there.
Do we need to amend?
I move to approve them with the amendment as mentioned.
Second.
All right. Can I have roll call or?
Yeah.
Gray?
Yes.
Tupin?
Yes.
Eckelzell?
Yes.
Boise?
Yes.
Conley?
Yes.
Di Benedetto?
Yes. All right. Communications from board and council. I don't have that much to report on the Urban Renewal Agency. The next meeting is going to be September 8th at 5:30 here. The agency provided feedback to Blake and Kansas State University on the concepts and strategies that he had proposed or had drafted for the agency to consider. And also having some discussions about partnering with Red Lodge Area Community Foundation to do a housing market study. That was was brought up at the last meeting and it's being discussed. That's all I have.
Are we gonna, is it in a form yet that we can take a look at it, or is it online?
I think once we get the feedback from Blake, then, it'll be distributed. And the plan, again, is to also hold another, community-wide meeting to present the information, the report and findings to the community as a whole, and also, so those are the plans as we get information back.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, City Council?
So we did make a motion to reconsider the downtown plan so we could make the appropriate amendments and have that passed with those appropriate amendments. So after a lot of motions and a lot of amending. And that's about all that we had at council.
And really the amendments were those that were suggested by the,
Yeah, it was just for what was suggested by Great West, or Main Street.
Main Street program.
Yep.
Is the one that wanted us to do a pretty minor amendment.
Yeah,
Are those-
basically just giving them some credit as well as.
Are those identified anywhere, or?
Yes, we do have those in the packet from last night.
Okay.
And they are in the updated format online, so.
So the downtown master plan is ready for distribution?
Correct.
Good.
Any idea when that will be? Maybe Mr. Mayor knows. When will that, that edited, corrected, approved downtown plan, when will that go online?
It is online right now, with the exception of changing the adoption date to last night from the 12th, but that's the only change, that is not represented online.
So it is online with those corrections that we did last night? Okay.
County,
So, the last meeting, we started working on the growth policy, the county policy, and I think we're gonna start working on subdivisions quite a bit as well, so that's what we've been.
is there a timeline for,
We're just
completing
gonna
those?
try to take, the last part of our meetings for the next few meetings to try to get through it, so, I don't know, they haven't given like an exact time frame, but soon, I hope.
Were there any new subdivisions that applied?
Nothing new, it was one that came back through. We're still sending back with some suggestions, so.
communication from the mayor?
I think they addressed the thing last night. I guess the only thing I'll say is, I'm really excited about this meeting. This is one of those things we've been kind of looking at and working toward for a year or so, and it's kind of fun to see some potential fruit on the horizon.
All right. Let's see. So next on the agenda is new business, and we have a public hearing for conditional use permit application, for development of a multifamily units with 4 and 3 units per structure, on Red Lodge Original Townsite Block 64, Lot 1 AM, COS 1774, generally located at the southwest corner of 5th Street East and Hagan Avenue North. And it's within our commercial mixed-use Z2 zoning district. So, go ahead and qualify the planning board. Does any member of the planning board have any ex parte communication to disclose?
No.
No.
Does any member feel that they should recuse themselves from participation in the hearing and decision on the matter before the planning board?
No.
No. The authority, the city planning board vote needed for action and standard review of Red Lodge zoning regulations. Has the matter been properly noticed as required by Red Lodge zoning regulations?
Yes.
Let the record indicate that Red Lodge City Planning Board has been called and qualified to hear the matter at hand, and that the matter is quasi-judicial in nature and has been properly noticed. At this time, just for the audience, we'll hear a report on behalf of the city, and then a report on behalf of the applicant, and then we'll open it up for a public hearing, at which time you'll be able to make your comments, and then it will come back to the board after the board has heard public comment and presentations by the applicant and the city. The board will then enter into a discussion around the table, at which time we will not have any more interaction with the public. We may have some questions for staff or the applicant at that time. So, I'll go ahead and have a report for the city.
Okay. So we've got a conditional use permit and design review permit, for multifamily development. That's inclusive of 2 fourplexes and 1 threeplex. In general, it appears to comply with zoning. We would recommend, approval of it, subject to the 18 conditions we have included there. We did receive comment from fire, and their only concern was proper addressing, and that's shown on the site plan. We received comment from Public Works, which was a revision to utility layout, basically individual services for each building. And then we did receive one written public comment that the planning board should have received. Other than that, I think everything else is pretty straightforward in this report, and we're happy to answer any questions.
All right. Yeah, report from the applicant, please.
Should I approach?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And state your name and address, please.
Sure. My name is Rob Moorhead. I own that property along with my brother in an LLC called Propriedad. I live at 1014 North 32nd Street in Billings, Montana. And this type of project is something we're familiar with. We own a construction and remodeling company in Billings. We've done work up here. And we have rehabbed hundreds of houses in Billings, distressed properties that weren't inhabitable, and turned them around in the community, added additional dwelling units in infill in the city, and have done quite a few of those projects. I did send, I think, a video on one of our projects and then a few pictures on others. I wanted to be a little bit more prepared, but Billings has been hit by hail 3 or 4 times, and a lot of our past customers have called, and I've been in the field for the last couple weeks, unfortunately. But you can throw up any of them, and I
I'm
can
working
have a
on it.
little bit of narrative.
I had it set up, and then when I switched screens,
There's
it changed.
too many monitors, thank you.
No, it's all right.
Well, while we're waiting, if there's anything else you want me to discuss, right now I'm more than happy to. The type of construction or the quality. We own a windows, siding, and roofing company, which I think makes us a little bit unique for this type of project, because in trying to look at the costs of this, it's a very tight project. And I would imagine that these types of projects aren't brought in front of your board very often because they just aren't feasible. And we own a foam machine for insulation. We would do all the roofing, siding. We own seamless siding machines. We have 7 of them. We would do all the interior trim. So that really is going to help drive costs down. But even with us doing that, it's still going to be a very tight project. I honestly don't know financially if it makes sense or not yet. I'm about 90 to 95% done with my analysis, but still have a few holes to fill. And I really didn't want to spend any more time or money on it until I knew whether the city looked favorably on it or not. So those things are still out there, but.
You ready? I'm ready whenever you are.
Oh, okay. So this is a project in Billings. It's on 11th Avenue North, 2303, what is that? 2305, 2307, and 2309. There was a single-family house on this. It had burned down probably 50 years ago and was still on the lot when we purchased it. We're methamphetamine and asbestos abatement contractors. There was asbestos in the house, which is why it just sat there for years, because it was cost prohibitive. We went in-house, my brother and I did the remediation on it. We demolished it. We asked for a variance with the city because it was a single-family property. It had 13,000 square feet, and we asked for a variance to put on 3 units, and we needed 16,000 square feet at the time. They approved us, and we built a duplex and a single family here. and it is long-term housing for, it's tied up really with the hospitals there, because it's 4 blocks away. And it turned out to be a great project. My sister-in-law did a quick YouTube video here, so you could kind of see the outside, some of the landscaping, and then some of the interior finishes. Just, this is something we would typically do on an infill project. And then I have a few pictures to show you on another 14-unit development we did, and another 10-unit development. So, anytime you're ready. I wish it was a little slower. It kind of blew through there, but the point of this project is we definitely aren't gonna cheapen out on the exterior. We own a windows and siding company, so we're gonna put the extra effort into the outside for sure. We want these units very efficient. We're primarily targeting long-term quality housing. The whole entire structures are going to be foamed. Energy Star rated windows, definitely. We're gonna foam the lids even. So we want very low utility costs to the end user. I think it's for obvious reasons. So,
And then, Rob, I have these as 2 sets of pictures, so this first one is the 4, and then the other is all the ones that were in the
Okay,
demo, just so
okay.
you can speak to it and tell me right or left, and I'll go.
okay, this is at 903 Lynch in Billings, Montana. There's 10 units on this development, and this is an example of 2 of them. Those houses right there are 100% maintenance-free on the outside. They have 50-year roofs that are hail-resistant. They're Class 4 shingles. And then all of the siding is seamless steel. So it looks like wood, and in fact, we've sided a few houses up here in seamless steel. The great thing about that is it's maintenance-free for the most part. It has a 50-year warranty on fade and chalk. They've come a long way in the last 20 years on coatings. And this, we built as an affordable townhome complex. We wanted low maintenance costs for the HOAs. And I just talked to the gentleman that lives in that left-hand unit. He was the first one that bought in our development, and he's still there. He's an over-the-road trucker for Town Pump and runs fuel. But he said, Rob, our HOA costs are still under $200 a month, that's unheard of really in Billings. I mean, they're upwards to $250 and $300. We drilled a well on this. You can kind of see right there next to the pump house. So all of the outside is watered by well water to keep the cost down for the HOA, and all the costs were really driven for the end user to make it as affordable as possible for long-term maintenance too. So that was a facility that we did, trying to think, I think in 2008. And if you go to that facility today, I mean, those houses still look new. And that's another shot of it. And there's one's very similar to that right behind me. It's kind of in a hammerhead type road. So
That's the steel siding?
that is, actually, that has steel siding on it, and believe it or not, in the gables, there is a vinyl shake. And you'd laugh, but our house, we live at 1014 North 32nd Street, so down by the hospitals in Billings. Our house is 100 and, yeah, at least 105 years old, a Craftsman-style home. I have hardy siding on the outside. We have cultured stone. We have vinyl shakes in the gables. And we have steel siding on, as accents on our garage in the house. And that house looks very traditional. It was so far gone when we bought it. We bought it in 2010, and it had trees growing up through the basement toilets. It was not inhabitable. And so we completely gutted it and started over with the shell. And we still get comments when people walk by all the time asking, who did the siding and landscaping? And Rachel's proud to say that she did the landscaping, and I did the siding, so. That's another facility located on, or another development we did on Colton, probably, that was in 2020. That has seamless steel siding on it as well. That was a very tight lot. There's 14 units. There's 8 on the Colton side, and then there's 6 on the Boulder side. The city did not want us to put a street all the way through because they thought Boulder School is right down here, and they thought that a lot of people would just cut through here as a pass-through, which is a good idea. So to enter these units, you come in through Colton. To enter these back units, these back 6, you come through Boulder. But that is 100% maintenance-free exterior on those buildings as well. And that's just another picture of the other 4 on the east side. Tuck under garages. They were 3-bedroom. The second floor it's a unique layout. The second floor had a giant great room, kitchen, dining room, and a half bath. And it has a porch off the balcony in the back. And at the time, we were selling these units for under $200,000 a piece. They hit the market at about $150,000 and sold really quick. So, but it's a high quality build. Again, it's maintenance free, Energy Star rated. Again, we try to drill a well on every development that we do to keep the HOA costs at a minimum, along with maintenance. So, oh, okay, that is just the exterior of one of those on, I forget I sent those actually, but on 11th Street. So you can kind of just, I don't know if you want to click on. That must just have come from that video, because the video, I think she made.
This was the Dropbox.
Oh, okay. She made that video from these pictures.
Okay.
So, you can kind of see the landscaping and the porches and, they're rentals. So we tried to keep the landscaping, again, presentable, but we knew that there's going to be renters there, so we tried to make it as maintenance-free as possible with hardscapes, particularly in the back. So that way, all these yards are fenced, and that would be something that I would like to propose for this project, is try and do hardscapes like this in the backyard to minimize mowing and access to that from unit to unit, and just make it to where everybody has their own private backyard.
I'll just go through these and stop me if you want to
Okay.
speak to anything, otherwise I'll just give them about 5 seconds apiece.
Sure.
You like watching the neighbor slides when we were kids.
One of these units is on retainer with the hospital. So the other 2 are long-term, and one of them, I believe this one here, that's furnished, is on retainer with the hospital for traveling nurses and doctors. She liked the kitchen a lot.
They always do.
She designed it, right?
Miranda, well, she just took pictures for me. I said, Miranda, I wasn't able to do this. I was just too busy this last week. Do you mind, having some pictures for me? finishes on the threeplex would be very similar to what's shown here. You may just want to fast forward a little bit because
I think we're about done.
Go to room to room.
That's the last one.
Okay, okay. And on the exterior of this one, we did hardy siding. So a lot of people think that that's maintenance-free. We are a preferred contractor, for the state of Montana for hardy. I think we're the only one at this point in time that is a actual preferred contractor. We're certified. They market that as kind of a maintenance-free product, but it's really not. If you read the warranty on it, it's a painted product, and you paint it every 5 or 10 years, depending on how dark of a color you choose. It's just my personal preference is I kind of lean more toward seamless steel. It's more of a maintenance-free product, and I would definitely try and do something like that on this. We can make seamless steel look very traditional.
That was it.
Okay.
Was there anything else that you thought I had or that I'm supposed to have that I didn't show there?
No, I don't think so. But, is there any questions that I didn't address? I rambled on for a little bit.
Anybody have any
Yeah.
questions?
About how long would it take from the time you break ground to finish?
That's a loaded question. My plan all along was to try and get approval and try and get my concrete in the ground before snow. And in Billings, that happens Thanksgiving. And then usually after that, it's a no-go. I own Beehive Storage in Billings as well, which is a storage facility along the interstate there. And we poured 40,000 square feet of concrete last December. Go figure. So, I mean, that's not normal. But we wanted to get concrete on the ground before it snowed and then go vertical in the winter. So
Okay.
I'm finding that the costs up here are probably around, on average, it varies, but on average is 30% higher than in Billings. And the rents aren't, they don't follow 30% higher than Billings. So I think that's why a lot of people like me aren't building product like this up here. It's a really tight budget to make it pencil.
You do your own property management? It looked like sometimes you did them for sale and sometimes you do them for rent.
It just really depended on the project. A lot of things that we go into, we have to have an exit strategy, and typically we have two options. We either sell it and make a profit, or we turn it into a rental and make a profit, one or the other. We rarely go into a project where we only have one out. So, and then that's just been an unwritten rule that my brother and I have abided by for the last 20 years.
And is this project, you're thinking more renting than selling?
100%. It would be, our whole intention is to fill the need within the community for long-term rents.
Thank you.
So that's the whole point of this project. And whenever I first started and had discussions with you and with Brian, it was, we want to put a fourplex and a threeplex on here. And then the more I started looking, I'm like, we've got to get the densities up for it to even start to make sense. And even, I know the project's tight with 11, but it's still going to be a go, no go. I mean, I won't know here until I get a few more numbers back, but it's really tight. Even with us doing a lot of it in-house.
Are you the general contractor, or do you hire that out, or?
No, I would be. I'll get into a little background on myself. I did engineering for 10 years, in the heavy lift industry, particularly container crane moves, demos, replaced core internals of nuclear reactors and reactor heads and steam generators, and did a lot of bridge moves. And I was a lead design engineer and lead project engineer for those types of projects. They were 150 million plus projects, and I would be the lead engineer or lead guy on those projects. And one night in bed, I told Rachel, she was 8 months pregnant, that I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to start a windows and siding business with my brother in Billings, and we were in Missoula. She didn't divorce me, and we moved to Billings and started that company. And as we grew, on the side up there, I built a house a year on the side while I was working 60, 70 hours a week and traveling a lot. Because Missoula is a very expensive place to live. And if you want a nice house, you can't just, we couldn't just buy it, we had to build it. And so we built several and stair-stepped up. And we came to Billings, and downtown, there's a lot of distressed properties. And I'm like, geez, Mark, why don't we start rehabbing some of these? And so we formed another company, and I think we've bought over 200 properties in that course of time, and either rehabbed them and turned them into our personal rentals or sold them. And everywhere we went, the neighbors were ecstatic when we did that. I mean, we would buy houses like down on the 100 block at Custer, and, you know, not real desirable areas, but, and we either fix the house that was there, we'd lifted up foundations and put new foundations underneath them, we gutted the insides. We've done that all over town. And then a lot of the times we'll add an additional dwelling unit in the back to get it to pencil. Then we've done that a lot, where we've put houses in off the alley, new houses that were 400 to 600 square feet, just as an additional dwelling unit to get that project to be able to pencil out. So we're working it from all sides. So like this particular project, we're trying to drive the cost down with more units and more density. And what the bank looks at is, there's three metrics really that a bank looks at. They look at cash flow. So one, they'll only lend 80% of cost, or no, that's not right. 80% of appraised value, or 70% of cost. Okay, that's two metrics that they look at. And the third metric is called the debt service coverage ratio. And so the project has to make a minimum of 125% more than what the debt service is with all expenses. So I've got to work that end of it with our build costs, along with trying to make affordable rents within the community. And so all three of those need to work. And if it doesn't, then the bank won't lend us that 70 or 80%, and that means more out-of-pocket money from us. And I'm not wealthy enough to be able to fund the project. I need other people's money, particularly the bank.
Always.
And I would bring in 20 or 30%, and a lot of the times that's sweat equity through our company. We're still paying for it because I'm paying the crews, but I'm not paying profit to another company. And that's how we've made a lot of these projects work in the past.
Anybody else have any questions?
Do you have a rough estimate of what you'd be renting each of those units for, the fourplex to the, and again, rough estimate, if not, that's understood.
No. I mean, I've had discussions with people sitting here in the audience. I've had discussions with the CFO of Beartooth Clinic on what's reasonable. And our goal is to make it to where it's enticing to them, obviously, because that's our customer base. It's got to be affordable. So And that's really, in the end, whenever I get all my figures together, I'm gonna approach those people and say, this is what I can afford to rent it to you for. Still have my 25% overage that's gonna satisfy the bank, and can we make this work? And if it doesn't, then I'll come to the city and say, is there things that we can do together to make this project affordable? Because I don't want that lot just to sit there empty. That's not doing anybody any good.
How long have you owned that lot?
Oh,
Well, I've seen it
I think-
vacant for a lot of years, but it's well-maintained.
we purchased that lot and we purchased, 507 Hagen, from a nice woman that I can't remember her name, but she did not want to sell, and do a cash deal because she has children, and she wanted to have those children have payments and not a lump sum, and I think blow it. I know that's what it was.
Contract.
So,
Yeah, I remember it was specifically only contract for days.
I remember that.
Right.
But, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but we negotiated with her and said, that's fine, we don't mind doing it. We can do a cash deal or we can do a contract for deed. But just know that in the future, vacant land does us no good, just sitting there. We have to develop it at some point in the future, whether it be 2, 5 years later, and now it's, I think, 5 years later. She, is willing to take a second position to the bank.
Wow.
So that way we can build, because the bank will want first
Wow.
position. And to make that deal work, that was one concession that she made was, okay, I'll take second position on it.
That's huge.
Any other questions? I think after the public hearing, I have a few questions on the siding and
Mm-hmm.
some
As we
other
go along.
questions.
Sure.
And relative to the design and stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
I think let's hear from the public first.
Okay.
All right, I'll open it up for the public hearing. If anybody that wants to, make a comment, please come up to the podium so that your voice is captured on the speaker, and, limit your comments to about 3 minutes, and, I'll open it up to the room first.
And then, Anna?
Okay, so my name is Kathy Borges. This is my husband, Miles Borges. We're the property owners at 511 Hagen Street North, so we're the property immediately contiguous, just to the south. And we did bring in some written comments for you that I'll just quickly go through for everybody here. And so they are mainly from the viewpoint of being the next door neighbor. And one of them was we did want landscaping to be considered, especially along our property area. There are some very nice existing landscaping trees, and I know you have to take out most everything just to get the property in, but there's a couple things that are very, very, very close to the property line, and if we could possibly keep those going, then we wanted to say that out loud, that we would love that. And then just adding back in, some screening plants, you know, in between the properties. In the alley, in order to do the parking that's on the plan, there would need to be regrading done. And when we bought our property, the existing garage is immediately on the property line. It sits lower than the alley. And so we had a concern about how the property could be regraded so it was level for parking, but then there's our garage wall. You know, we don't want our garage to cave in from regrading efforts. And also for runoff from those parking spots. For the orientation of the whole project, I gather from Brian, he said that the zoning currently requires the project to be fronted on Fifth Street rather than fronted along Hagen, which is the more residential area. And we just wanted to put our 2 cents in that it certainly seems more like a residential property, why not have the front be on Hagan? So that can be taken into consideration. And then the last thing was, for just a small architectural enhancement, that the current plans for that property, the fourplex that fronts Hagan, there are the separate mall porch roofs over each individual entrance. And we were wondering if there's possible to have a contiguous porch across the front. That it's not that much more building material, but it certainly dresses that fourplex up a lot. And I think those were all of our written comments, and so I will sit down now.
Anybody else in the room like to make a comment?
Brad Caton, 28 Big Sky Drive, also at the Red Lodge Area Community Foundation. What I'd like to say is this is a bona fide need in the community. Right now, we have no efforts at the Red Lodge Area Community Foundation for 3-bedroom properties for development. So this effort is getting at something that we're not able to work on at the current time. It's a competent builder with a history and a track record, so that also adds to the strength of this project. And the closer that it can get to affordability, the better it is. The closer they can get to what the current FMR, the current fair market rent is for a 3-bedroom, that's excellent. So just with those considerations, voicing support. Thank you.
Anybody else in the room would like to make a comment?
Oh, I'd just like to say, if we could see,
Have your name.
I'm Miles Borges, Kathy Borges, if we had a site plan to look at, kind of to get a feel for the siting of, if that's available tonight, or is it gonna be available at some point in time before you launch into construction?
You said site plan?
Site plan that shows the, you know, how everything sits and the parking and so forth.
Anybody else in the room?
Is it possible for me to kind of address some of those comments? Can I do that?
Later.
Okay.
Anybody online?
Looking to online. If anybody's online can either turn on their camera or raise their hand or turn on their mic. I have Angie Hazelworth online who looks like she'd like to speak.
Go ahead.
Hello. So I feel like there's a lot I don't know about how this will be designed, but it sounds like a 3-plex and a 4-plex that are all 3 bedrooms. I've gleaned from just this meeting. So to me, that sounds like there could potentially be like 14 or more vehicles. So I would be curious to how the parking, are these going to have some covered parking underneath, like in some of the other pictures, or how will the vehicles and parking be accommodated? It seems like potentially a lot for even a corner lot like that. And then my other comment is, I wonder if Mr. Moorhead is interested in looking at the old hospital at all with his asbestos abatement skills.
We're all laughing.
Thank you.
Anybody else online?
I am not seeing any other online at this time, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Any further comments from the room? Okay, if I hear none, I'll close the public hearing and bring the meeting back to the table here. And I guess I'll just kind of open it up, go around the table here and either ask questions of the staff on the staff report or the developer, or address some of the public comments that have been made or asked.
I was kind of curious that You're good, there's 11 units there, do there have to be 11 hookups?
No, each building will have one hookup.
So that reduces the cost for building?
Yep, reduces the cost per building. It's a larger hookup than a typical residential, but there'll be 1 meter, 1 water bill for each building.
So there'll be an HOA, well,
It won't,
Yeah.
really won't be an HOA.
no, not really.
It'll be I mean,
Just
he'll be
an
in charge
expense.
of maintenance.
And there would be a well on the property.
We would allow a well if he wanted to go that route for irrigation. So then he's not watering with city water.
Exactly.
I think it looks great. And again, I think it fills in a need. I think that it's great to have a little bit of diversity into it as well, having some 2 bedrooms as well as 3 bedrooms, some with garage. I think it fills a much needed spot. And not only that, but it makes sense and again, makes good sense with the lots and the size. And it also, again, after looking through some of the elevations, very attractive. Yeah, that's my thought on it, and very thorough reports, so thank you, city staff and, WWC as well as Mr. Moore.
Vernon?
I agree with Chelsea. I think it's very needed.
I did, one of the notes that Miles and Kathy said was to change the fronting on Fifth Street. But I think that we need the corner visibility there. So that's probably why you didn't do that. Because when people are turning from Hagan onto Fifth, we need that visibility.
I can answer that. I can answer that too if you want. So the main reason is the zoning regulations define the front of the lot as the narrowest street frontage. So based on the definitions in the zoning regulations, we had to treat the north property boundary, that's the narrowest street frontage, as the front of the lot.
So that these would all be addressed on Fifth Street?
This is zoning, so addressing is different.
Okay.
I don't know about addressing. I'm not familiar with addressing requirements for the city, but just for zoning purposes, that's what the definitions say in zoning. So that's why, the front yard setback is from the north property line, right? And that sort of thing. And the parking, as far as parking in the driveways and those sorts of things are laid out the way they are, is because of that definition in zoning.
Yeah, it just makes more sense to have the triplexes have the driveway and garage space.
On the Fifth.
On Fifth.
I agree.
And then again, just for overall spacing, that all tracks.
Brian, can you speak to the original plan and some of the impacts on parking if it's rotated to Hagan rather than Fifth? So when Fifth Street became the frontage, part of zoning is you can't have any parking in the front setback. So the whole triplex actually had to move 10 feet back to accommodate the 10 feet plus the 18-foot parking for the driveway. And so that, if it was the other way where Hagan and that triplex, there'd be 10 more feet in between the buildings. There'd still be 18 feet of parking in each driveway plus the garage. But that's basically the biggest difference in the design with Fifth Street being the frontage. It forced that triplex back another 10 feet just to accommodate the parking spots. So now there's 28 feet of parking in front of each triplex rather than 18 feet.
And I was kind of curious, what's between these units? In our site plan, it says Goodman Inc. But is that a green space? I see doors leading out to it. Is it walkway where that light blue line is? What's between those buildings?
Okay, so
this is fresh water in, to this building. And then that fresh water, there'd be a meter, here, and then it would be distributed underground to this building and to the triplex. This here, I originally proposed a single 6-inch sewer main and then, a clean out, at each building, to reduce costs. But I haven't done anything in Red Lodge, and that triggers, correct me if I'm wrong, but that triggers a
It triggers it to be considered a sewer main.
sewer main at that point.
So each unit will have its own water line and its own sewer line.
Right.
I think she's kind of asking about like, in between here,
Yeah,
is there a sidewalk?
Mhm.
Is it, what's gonna be in between?
Mhm.
visually, what's gonna be between
Oh, I
there?
see what you're saying.
Yeah,
So I think it's gonna be I would like to landscape it something similar to what was on that video. With hardscapes, I would like to do, fenced areas in here. Now, if you look at each one of these, I don't know how much you looked at the elevations on the plans, but there's a covered porch area here in each one of these, units of the fourplex. And it's a covered porch area, and then it had literally a large, built-in storage shed out there for bikes or skis or whatever else. I was trying to put it on the front, but it looked kind of goofy doing that. It looked like there were 2 front doors, which didn't feel to me at all. I'd like to do a lot of hardscapes in here if possible. It's gonna see sun, but it's not gonna see a lot of sun. So it's gonna be difficult to get grass and things like that to grow in there. But we could do a lot of hardscapes, and I wanted to orient these 2 buildings north and south, so that way we get that sun to melt a lot of this in here. So I wanted to do it with plants back here and with, different sized gravels, like were in those pictures with large gravel, I guess, how can I say this, discretized with, smaller gravels, just to give it some interest, but still make that area kind of maintenance free. My plan is, I would really like to fence this area and let people have some private space to where they could have a small dog or, a single dog and still live within a little bit tighter community.
Rob, can you speak to the orientation and if you have a preference and what are the impacts to cost and development to do? Because I know the original drawing came in with this coming in on Hagan.
Right, and so this is the second go-around, and what, I would love to move this building 10 feet more, toward Fifth Street, because I think the front yards aren't gonna be usable, in my opinion. I mean, it's purely for aesthetics. If I can get the backyard larger, I mean, obviously, I think that's gonna be a better quality living space for people to have a little bit more backyard. If they have pets or something like that, it's definitely more usable than having it in the front. That to me would be important. To address, your comments on your garage, can you pan down into this area right here? Maybe? Okay, so your garage is right here, right on the property line, and I know that this is the highest point on the property, and then the alley kind of dives down. And we're aware of that, and don't want to drive drainage toward your house at all. I would envision, I haven't done the grading plan yet, because I don't want to spend more money if it's not going to work, but my goal was to kind of drive we have to follow the alley for the most part. I mean, we can't change the elevation of the alley, so we're going to contour our parking and it slopes like this toward the north. And our drainage ultimately is, we're going to create swells within here, nice swells in between here, which would be great with that gravel area, so we can drive a lot of the drainage toward that area. And then whatever drainage we couldn't take there, we would go more toward the northeast corner. There's a storm drain there, if we couldn't take all of it immediately onto the property. But so we're definitely cognizant of that. We want to be good neighbors. We want screening. I think fences are good for neighbors, particularly in this scenario. You'll notice on that north side property, we had fencing around all the property for that reason. So if people have dogs, you know, we don't want dogs to be able to see through the fence and bark at each other. We'd like everybody to have their own private little space. It's gonna be little, but it's gonna be, we're trying to make it private for each person.
So there'd be a fence all along that, south side of the property?
What I want to do, and those types of things come at the end whenever I'm crunching all my numbers. I would really like to do a fence all the way along here, and then I would like to do a fence in between the triplex and the fourplexes. And then, the triplexes, I would really like the fence to make that private, because I think if those are gonna be rentals, they're probably gonna have kids, because they're gonna have an extra bedroom. And have that fence. And lastly, I would like, if possible, to fence in between these units, and that's why I'm saying, you know, mowing this area would be kind of difficult if we have a fence for every unit. And that's why I was saying, okay, let's do, hardscapes and really try and drive our drainage to that area too, if we can.
Can you explain your proposed fencing a little bit better and how that,
Yes, okay.
how that would affect?
Can you
what we're-
kind of zoom out so we get a little bit bigger? Okay, so, this is the neighbor to the south, and I would like to fence all along the southern edge of the property, 6-foot fence, whether it be cedar or vinyl. I don't really have a preference. And then I would like to be able to move this triplex 10 feet to the north, if possible. And then I would like to create a fenced area for each one of these three plexes. I don't know exactly how that fence would go yet, but I could see it, somehow tying to this fourplex and then over and then back up to this threeplex. And so each person would have a small backyard.
So on the fourplexes, the fence would basically go that space that's between the fourplexes, you would have a fence that goes all the way across for each of the units.
So let me prioritize these in order of what I think is important. I think this south fence is probably the most important. The next fence would be creating private spaces for this threeplex. And then lastly would be, if there's enough money in the pot, to run a fence down between the fourplexes and then fence each unit. So each unit would have its own private space right here, because we have a fence that goes up in between them. And so everybody would have a backyard that's approximately, let's say 20 feet by 15 feet. It's not very big, but still it's a backyard. And they do have a covered porch that I envision, you know, grills, bike storage. You know, I'd like to put bike hangers and ski racks on the outside walls for storage. And then that's also why we did the built-in sheds. Because everybody likes to live in their lodge and do outdoor activities, some storage somewhere.
So the front entrance to those is not from Hagan or from the out.
The front entrance to these, this is the front door, and it does face Hagan.
Okay.
So there's four doors that do face Hagan.
And those doors are covered?
There is a covered porch over the,
The front door is the one that I was looking at.
yes, so that would be right there. So there are covered entries over just the doors. And it's difficult to see what the rear porches would look like, but that is a covered area. And then this right here is a shed with a divider wall in it, and there's a door on each side. So each tenant has, storage as well.
So I think One of the requests was to basically extend the porch line all the way, and that, I think that's what I understood.
Yeah, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but they proposed going from here over to here with a covered porch.
I think that would actually block some sunlight. And we like as much as we can get.
You know, I can look at options on what other things we can do there. We were planning on, you know, I know it looks kind of boring with just like a horizontal siding here and a board and batten here, but we can get kind of creative with different textures of sidings. We have a lot in our back shop. I can add that part of this was when it came in and going to zoning, we have a thing in zoning about talking about breaking up the front. And so
Yeah.
that's why there was one and then there wasn't one, and then there was one and there wasn't one. That was, a lot of that was our guidance and direction to them.
Plus, again, you put 2 trees there in the front, that's gonna, again, it'll be.
Bushes and trees, yeah, the landscape plan will add a lot to it.
Again, across the board, I think that this elevation, again, provides some variety as well as between the 2 different types of siding coming down. Plus, based off what I'm hearing, you don't really wanna add any additional cost just for aesthetics.
No,
Yeah, with that up there, could you talk a little bit about the siding then? That you know, in your previous examples, you talked about steel siding, horizontal, vertical, and
A lot of people in
hardened
this
siding.
hardy.
Sure. Probably aren't, I mean, a lot of people in this room probably understand Hardy and have seen it. They're masters of marketing. I like Hardy, I do, but I don't think it's the perfect siding. And I don't think steel is either. They both have their pros and their cons. For example is, we've sided 250 houses in Gillette, Wyoming, over the years. And there's 3 houses right in a row. One of them we did in vinyl, the next one we did in steel, and the third one we did in Hardy. So it just proves what is important that one person isn't the next. In this particular community, I would lean a lot more towards seamless steel. And what seamless steel is it's almost like a gutter machine. We have 7 of them, and we have big coils of steel that we load in the front of the machine, and it's a roll former. So there's 8 stations in these, and it just rolls out a panel the length of the wall. There are no seams in it. So literally, we could run lap siding from here to here, and there wouldn't be a seam in it. The nice thing about that is the new coatings on steel are fantastic. The minimum steel coating that we can get has a 35-year warranty on fade and chalk. And so whenever you take your finger and you do that, and that dust is the same color as the siding, that's chalking. And of course, we all know what fading is. But the coatings that they put on them now are very good. It's very similar to a powder coating. It's a ceramic, and they bake it, and then they put a layer of Kynar or Teflon over the top of it. Teflon has been around since the 40s, and it has a very good track history when exposed to ultraviolet radiation. We live at a higher elevation here. We have a UV index that is as high as it is in Phoenix, Arizona, because we're higher up to the sun, and there's less atmosphere. So things in our area, are exposed to brutal conditions with the temperature and with the fade and chalk. And seamless steel on this community would be perfect because it reduces the maintenance cycles. We would want to put an SBS modified rubber shingle on the roof. It looks exactly like an architectural shingle. You don't know the difference, but it lives through any hailstorm. It's twice as heavy as a regular shingle, and it's very ductile. The reason why they made it was so they could shingle in Alaska in the middle of winter. At below zero, you can take the shingle, bend it, and touch tip to tip, and it won't snap in half. We do them all the time in Billings. My house has it. We've had it since 2010. It lived through probably 8 hailstorms. I recommend people do it. It costs about 20% more, but you'll get a 6 to a 10% discount on your homeowner's insurance a lot of the times. I tell people, if you get that discount, do it. If you don't get the discount, don't do it. So again, I personally would want to put
seamless steel on as much of this as possible. We also have in our yard, we do a lot of higher end commercial, sidings. We did the NAI, Performance Engineering Building in Billings, last year. That was a $700,000 siding project on that building. We have a lot of those materials left over. We have a lot of steels that look like wood, and they're plank, type siding. So they look like cedar or redwood, but they're steel. And they, again, have that 35 to 50-year warranty on the fading chalk. So we would pull out a lot of those materials. They're very expensive, but we have a big warehouse, full of that kind of stuff just left over from other projects that we would want to put on here, either in the recessed areas, dress up the front of those threeplexes, with accents like that. Again, for cost savings too, because we have a lot of those left over from larger projects. So, and they would go on these.
On the triplex on Hagen, there aren't any windows?
Yeah, there are.
But,
Aren't I looking at,
No, that's the side elevation.
That's the front of them.
that's on Fifth Street, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and the bottom is on Hagen,
Oh, I see.
Oh, yes, on that side.
and there are no windows on there?
No. I mean, on these, to put it in perspective, that triplex is gonna cost twice the amount to build as a fourplex. So with every one of these jogs in the foundation, garages, all of that adds up. And this is a 3-bedroom with, let's see, I think it's 3 bath versus, the others that are 2-bedroom and 1.5 bath. All that adds up quickly. So I was kind of taken back at the price of these, actually. They're coming in higher than I anticipated. It's got a covered porch on the front. It's got a lot of detail on it that really drives up the price.
The vertical siding, what is that steel as well?
We can do steel there. There's a plethora of things we can do. We can do, Bridger Steel's not in business anymore, but like ProTech or, the other company that bought Bridger Steel. We don't do much business with them yet. Or we could make our own, with our roll formers. So there's all kinds of options that we can do there. I would rather do steel. So whether it's standing seam, whether it's board and batten, whatever it is, we would definitely want to break up the floors and add as much interest as possible. More than likely, depending on cost, but all of it costs. But like this band would be done in steel, and it would be hand bent on site. So it would be maintenance free. And then more than likely, we would discretize it with a couple of vertical trim boards here, and maybe do a different color of siding in the center. Again, we try and add as much accents as we can. We own the company, so we're gonna be cheaper than anybody else that can do it, but then again, we've got to be cognizant of the cost too.
And then is that a shake that's on the,
That's drawn as a shake right now, and we've done hardy shake, which it's fine. I'm not a big fan of it. I would rather do vinyl shake and do a lighter color, then it doesn't fade.
how does vinyl hold up these days?
We have vinyl shake on our gables, on our north and east sides. It's a very dark shake, and it looks like cedar. It really does. You'd be shocked that it's vinyl. On the west side, in our backyard, that's probably the worst. It's beat up, and I need to
Find
reset that.
someone.
That's
Hailstorm.
15 years old, that vinyl shake. But if it's lighter color, it's not gonna favor chalk. Like I tell all customers, if you want a bulletproof siding, you would side your house either white or tan. White because it doesn't fade, and tan because it hides dirt. Other than that, there's no other reason other than you don't like those two colors to do your house and something different.
No, I know that, you know, you're not far enough along that we actually have a landscape plan,
Right.
but on the, end of that, of the triplex, maybe a tree or something. I notice here that you have, an area that's probably for catching water.
Yeah, there's an area for snow, I think, throughout the plan, and there's also an area for, additional parking on the side of those as well in some instances. The landscaping plan, I mean, what,
I'm just trying to figure out how to break up that, not cause you a ton of money, but to me, I just don't like that end that is just solid, whether they're going vertical or horizontal.
I don't necessarily mind it, because to me, if you think about the big picture, like you have a whole nother unit next to it, that's kind of your breakup. This would be the equivalent, like if you put it together visually, that would just be a section of wall along with other parts that are broken up. And again, I think in this situation, having utility over a window that might honestly cave a project, like, and again, having parking space versus a tree, especially, you know, having RV space when we're always talking about how we need more off-street parking.
Brian, can you speak to some of the stuff that, why we don't ask for it up front and kind of the approval? I know they have to get checked off down the road, but like landscaping or lighting or some of that stuff. And then feel free to punt it to Jeremy if you want to.
I'll punt to Jeremy.
I meant after you said something.
Oh,
I think,
a lot of it just,
I was gonna say, I think he did say something. He punted it to me.
All right. Can I talk a little bit about that? Okay. Like I said, I've never done a project up here, but how we've done it in Billings, because they're comfortable with us, is if we go in for a variance or we go in for a zone change or where we want to add densities, usually we ask, and the city says yes, is there's 10 items that you want. You want 10 trees on the property. You want shrubs, you want landscaping, you want shielded lighting. And all of that can be conditional to the project. So if you say, yes, you're allowed to build 11 units up here under these following conditions, you have to start construction within a year. You have to provide 24 trees. You have to do a fence on the southern border. You can make things like that conditional, and I will incorporate them into the project. But I don't want to harp on this, and I don't want to hold it over people's heads, but the main driver on this is cost. And I'm walking a very fine line trying to get the project to go. And I not that I'm trying to threaten people, you put a tree in, it's going to bust the project. No, but I just want people to know that this is the tightest project I've ever done. Why am I trying to do it? I own that property, or else I probably wouldn't be doing it. Doesn't make sense. I can make a lot more profit in other places.
Yeah, could you bring up the?
Did you still want me to talk about some of those things a little bit?
It's your call, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Jeremy.
Okay, so, I mean, essentially the zoning regulations, you know, piggybacking off what, the applicant talked about, you know, we have very specific standards in the zoning regulations on what's required for landscaping, for lighting, and those sorts of things. In a case of a conditional use permit, it doesn't make sense to require the applicant to do all of that work up front for the purposes of the planning board when that stuff costs money for the applicant. If they have to do that work up front, a lot of times that will essentially possibly kill a project, because that's money that they have to expend to develop those plans up front without any assurance that they're going to get an approved conditional use permit. And so what we want to do is partially to incentivize this kind of stuff, is to get a basic idea of what they want to do, without them having to expend a bunch of money trying to come up with all these plans that are required. And that's why we add them as conditions. So we just say, you have to do this before you can get your zoning and building permit, right? That's just added as a condition of their conditional use permit. So the planning board and the city can be assured that before we issue any other permits, they submit those plans, but the applicant doesn't have to expend those funds to develop all of that work before they are assured they have a project. So hopefully that makes sense, but that's the basic idea.
Thanks, Jeremy. Yeah, I guess just to kind of follow up on that, the fact that we don't have a landscaping or lighting plan, I guess it kind of at least have a general sense of what your concept is relative to landscaping and what you think you might be proposing to come in with. And if you could bring up the site plan so we can kind of look at that.
So we own a concrete curbing machine too. So, we would do a lot of, concrete curbs that would contour around the buildings. Again, all of this I would want to be gravel with, maybe 3/4 crushed in some areas, and then larger boulders in others, just to give it some interest, and maybe even haul up, from the quarries in Laurel, some of their rectangular blocks for interest. Again, we want to keep maintenance low, but still make it attractive. We would probably curb around the front of these units, definitely curb in here, for, trees and shrubs. That's going to be a big part of it. We don't want just a building with sidewalk and doors. We definitely want some interest. They didn't drive our plan at all on that north side, 11th Avenue, north project that we showed you. Those were just landscaping that we came up with, and there was quite a bit there for a rental unit. We would do something very similar to this. I don't know how all this is going to play out, because it's higher than the rest of the lot. Whether there's going to be some type of retainage wall here, I would rather not. I would rather try and, from the parking area, slope it this way and then to here. Here, I would like it to slope down, so we don't have a retainage wall here. I could see that just being a huge hazard with snow and ice. I would like to try and keep this building elevation level with the parking area, and then try and divert all the slope really this way, away from that corner, and drive a lot of storm water in this area here if possible, just because there's not going to be grass.
So to kind of get at Sandy's question on the Hagen side of that threeplex, there would be some shrubbery and or trees planted in that space.
This we had for snow, and there was RV parking and a hookup here, on this unit here. And then, but there is a boulevard here with a sidewalk, and there's about a 6-foot area right here that will probably be some type of hardscape with trees, I would imagine, along that area. And this, I hate to say it, but this site plan isn't 100% set in stone.
Right.
Until we get until we survey it. And then we have to figure out how we're gonna tier those elevations. I don't think the buildings would move much, but how the landscaping is dictated is really gonna happen on how we can get drainage away from the buildings and toward those swell areas. But we don't like grass right against a unit.
we like, on every unit that every rental we own in town, and we own a lot, we always try and do hardscapes around that area to keep the grass away from the property. We don't want sprinklers hitting the building. We have drip lines through.
With the hardscaping, how, do you have issues with weeds coming up through the gravel, and how do you address that?
No, I mean, we do 2 layers of weed barrier typically. We'll do 2 layers of weed barrier, and then, we usually will lay the curb on top of it, so that way the weeds aren't growing up, in between the curb and the gravel area. And then we do a lot of evergreens, because they don't shed a lot of leaves. And then we do a lot of, what are the prickly things? The prickly,
Brayberry?
that's
Yeah,
it.
barberry.
Deer don't like them, so they stay. We use a lot of those, so.
And in shaded areas, there's also options for different.
So if you have an impermeable layer underneath the gravel, how does that influence drainage and snow melt and?
No, it's not impermeable. We're not using like a 6 mil plastic. We're just using a landscape fabric.
Okay,
So it's a woven fabric.
so it's permeable.
It is.
Okay.
It is. But again, we don't like grass right next to the building because we don't want sprinklers there and we don't want water next to the building.
And then the trees on the south edge of that property, how, are you gonna be able to retain any of those, or are they all in the way?
We want to retain as many as possible. I know there's some beautiful blue spruces up here that I really don't want to go. And there's some deciduous trees along here, and then there's another couple evergreens over on this area here. We want to retain as many as we can.
Does the ability to shift those to the north better facilitate that?
It may. It may. And I think we've addressed the parking. I think we have 1.5 times the parking spots there.
There's enough parking spots for what's required.
Is the parking, off the alley, is that covered?
No.
And the last question I have is to do with your lighting. Is it just basically porch lighting as far as the outdoors?
Yes, and I mean, we don't want any spotlights on like the second story of these. We just want shielded lighting by the entry doors, so we don't get a bunch of light pollution. But honestly, if you have ever, I have stayed on that lot in a camper at night, and
Don't tell us that.
there is a lot of light pollution that comes off of this yard. You don't need a flashlight over here ever.
No.
You can walk the whole entire thing. It's bright. So, yeah. And we stayed in 507 Hagen. You don't need a light in the living room either if the shades are open.
Right.
It is. So noise or light pollution, really, I don't think is gonna be an issue because it's already polluted.
Yeah, the downtown right there is very bright.
But all of ours would have the guard, so it just casts down. But within reason, I mean, we want it to light up the sidewalk too, as much as we can.
And for Brian, explain again about why they have to have the 10-foot plus 18 feet off of Fifth.
Because in our zoning, there's no parking allowed in the front setback. And so the front setback would be 10 feet. And we have to go 18 more feet to get another parking spot. So if Hagen was the front, the triplex would be 10 feet closer. The parking would still be on the property, but it wouldn't be a 28-foot parking spot, it'd be an 18-foot.
I would really prefer.
And part of the driving behind that is what our zoning says, and there's a couple of different contradicting things in it, but it was mentioned earlier that says your shortest edge. So if you think about that, if that were three separate lots still, your shortest edge is Hagan, your shortest edge is Hagan, your shortest edge, as soon as you join them into one lot,
The
you
shortest.
just, and I don't think intentionally, but you just changed it so the default we drive people toward is now make it fit, because with those three lots as one lot, that now becomes the shortest edge.
Do we have the ability as a planning board to make a change for this
I think for
property?
Jeremy.
I think that's probably a question for Jeremy, and I would suspect not. Go
So
ahead.
the issue is the parking in the driveway. So though he needs those 3 parking spaces in the driveway to meet the parking requirements for the site plan. And so the problem becomes if you move the building, the triplex closer to that north boundary, now part of that parking space is in the front yard setback, which is not allowed in the zoning. In order to allow that in the front yard setback, we would have to do a variance. And that would be a separate public hearing,
Yeah.
or a variance to allow parking within the front yard setback. We can't do that in a conditional use permit. That has to be a variance request.
When a variance is only granted,
For a
in
hardship.
very hardship.
Right? And so it would be tough to, say that there's a hardship, granted, we have a site plan that shows that he can meet, that the setbacks can be met.
Okay.
And that I don't know that a hardship necessarily exists in this case. Now, if he was able to do some, reworking of the site plan and put those 3 parking spaces in another location, then we could, that threeplex could move further north. And I don't think that necessarily needs to be part of your CUP decision. That part of it, your CUP decision is really, it's the use, right? You're approving the units on the lot. Now you are looking at site plan elements, you are discussing those things, but ultimately the conditional use permit is for the approval of the use of the lot that he's requesting, right? And so after you do your process, if you approve this conditional use permit with the conditions that are recommended, then he can still tweak this site plan to meet, as long as it meets the other portions of the zoning regulations and setbacks and parking and those sorts of things that are required, as long as he doesn't increase the number of units, right? That's the thing. You're approving the number of units on the lot, essentially. And so he couldn't increase the number of units without coming back to you, but he could make some tweaks to the site plan.
Okay.
Can you point me to where it says zoning doesn't allow parking in the front setback?
Thank you. I remember something about that.
Yeah, I've never run across that issue before, so.
I just don't remember where.
Jeremy, are you pulling it up? We're not hearing your mic, sir.
Sorry, I shut
Your
my
lips are moving.
Sorry about that. I'll look for it here. It's in the parking section. So it is, let's see. So it's 4.5.44 parking lot design. Number B, it says setbacks. Parking shall not be located in the required minimum front setback.
And then the sections that talk about how you determine the frontage, my recollection is we have 2 or 3 that are kind of a little bit contradictory.
That's in the definitions. So if you go to the definitions section, let me see if I can find it. I think it's under.
What does it say? 4.4.4.
So it's under lot line definitions and front. Let's see, it says. Try to find it here. So this is where it gets, it's a little bit wishy-washy, but it is consistent with, you know, with regulations from other jurisdictions. But it says, on a corner lot, only one lot line will be considered a front lot line, typically the narrower frontage, is what it says. Which is typically, which is pretty typical of most zoning regulations, is the narrowest street frontage.
But doesn't typically mean you can say something else for this one?
This is not typical, and then we can have it on Hagan, and then he doesn't have to worry about that.
See where I'm
I don't know if I really want to answer that. It's, even though it says typically the narrower street frontage, I'm leaning towards saying it's the narrower street frontage, because that's pretty typical of most zoning regulations, is to have the narrowest street frontage be considered the front of the lot.
Question, is there a reason for that? Like, what's the deciding
Well,
factor that it should be?
Well, I mean, the main reason for that is, you know, how do you decide where your setbacks are from? So you have to define, you know, where your front lot line is, so then you can set your side lot lines and your rear lot line, right? So the rear lot line is always opposite of the front lot line, and then your side lot lines are the other sides, right? So that's the main reason for defining that, is so you know where your setbacks, you know, how you set your setbacks.
I understand that portion, like the reason to define it. I'm wondering if there's a reason why it has to be off the narrowest street frontage.
Well, because
Like, to me,
if you look at if you look at a standard lot, it typically is the narrowest street frontage on a standard block and lot setup. The narrowest street frontage is the front lot line. So that's historically, the front lot line is the narrowest street frontage.
But if it says typically, that doesn't say it will be.
Yeah.
There's a difference between that word typically versus it shall.
So this is just my opinion. I mean, if you guys want to take a different approach to it, and you want to make a different statement on it, my opinion is that the front of the lot line is the narrowest street frontage, even though it says typically. We have to set something as the front lot line, and that's typically what it is, the narrowest street frontage. So if you as the planning board want to do something different and direct us in this case to do something different, then we can do that.
Jeremy, do you see any negative repercussions for setting the frontage to Hagan versus, would it just be that, well, now other people can question that down the road, or is it really there is no negatives, or is it negative for the fact that we might be breaking a law?
I mean, I think in this case, I don't think there's a negative in this particular case. I can't speak to future applications. I think the thing that I would say is that, you know, if we do it for this, then we have to be flexible for any other applications that come after this. So if we have another project that has on a corner lot in a similar situation, but you know, you guys want to say, nope, we definitely want the narrowest street frontage to be the front lot line, but the applicant wants it the other way, I don't think we could necessarily pick and choose, right? So I think at this point, I would say, if you say, hey, you know, applicant, developer, you can pick whichever one you want to be the front, right? If you want it to be off Hagan, that's fine, or if you want it to be off Fifth, that's fine. Then we have to do that for everybody.
Jeremy, isn't there another section where we say it'll be the streets rather than,
Avenues.
we say it'll be the avenues rather than the numbered streets? Brian, do you remember where that?
Don't remember that section.
facing, so I'm just gonna go searching to the next one. Talking about facing. Building orientation, no?
I remember seeing that somewhere.
I did too, I was just gonna look on plain definitions.
I mean, this is some of the reason why we're going through and updating the zoning regulations is to try to fix some of these things that are ambiguous or gray or
Like
contradictory.
page 411, 8.
So
Yeah.
there is a definition for frontage.
Neighbors.
The side of the lot that is considered the front and has the shortest dimension to an abutting street, or the side of the lot that directly butts an avenue. Notwithstanding, a lot
So either
may
way.
have multiple street fronts. Oh, again, I think that's a little ambiguous. I think if you were to look at this one, you could almost say that this might have 2 front yards, then you would have 10-foot setbacks off of both streets.
Oh, God.
So I don't know. I don't know if you want to use that one. But this is one of the reasons why we're going through the zoning regulations, is try to fix some of this stuff, right? So
Identify this, one of those spots we fixed?
I like
Yes.
that one.
So I, it does say, the end of that says notwithstanding a lot may have multiple street fronts. So if in that case, in that definition, you could almost say there's 2 front yards and they have to be 10 feet off of both streets. But
Well, it looks like it is 10 feet off of Hagen, so.
Are we 10 feet off of Hagen?
It looks like it.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, they show the 6-foot setback line. I would say it's probably close. But they don't have a dimension there that I can see.
Yeah, I can't see it either.
I mean, the original site plan had the 10-foot front yard setback off of Hagen when we first looked at this as staff. And then reading the definitions, our interpretation and opinion was that the narrowest street frontage was the front. So the 10-foot setback had to apply to that. Again, that's my opinion. If the planning board wants to make a different determination, then that's fine. But just know, going forward, we'd have to make that apply to anything that comes, that might have a similar situation.
Does it reset when the new zoning comes out?
Well, yes, because hopefully we'll clean all this up. So there won't be any interpretation needed. It'll be very clear on what the requirement is.
All right.
Well, I feel historically, we've always tried to protect the avenues as far as setbacks more than the street.
Yep.
See, on corner lots, even with a new house, if they wanna face the street, that's fine, but their avenue is still the setback. That's how, historically, I know that we've tried to do.
What is the setback on Hagen again?
Looks like it's close to 10.
It
Six,
looks,
6
if
feet?
this is 10, this is 10. See what I'm saying?
It looks to be close to 10 feet is what they have that fourplex setback. And maybe the applicant can answer that question.
And keep in mind that this is the second site plan, so the first one came in that did have that 10 feet on it.
Off of Hagen? And probably the developer would be the one that would say whether or not, if we removed the 10-foot on Fifth Street and enforced it on Hagen, does that create a problem?
No, I don't think so. No, I think it would be better usable space for everybody, and it would get that fourplex off the avenue a little bit more, for hardscapes and landscapes. Aesthetically, that would be good. Again, I hate to say this, but I can't commit exactly
exactly to where everything is right now, because we haven't even surveyed the lot. But this is my best guess of how I can make it work, just eyeballing what's there. I would like it if I could move that back and I could move that triplex forward. And correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, but didn't the state pass a parking, law that says that in the future, after October, you only have to have one
One.
parking space?
I'll refer to Jermaine, but I think that was, something that pertains to towns of over 5,000.
Okay.
And so this planning board would have to match that if they chose to do so. But I think that new regulation only applies to cities over 5,000, but I defer to Jeremy and Greg on that.
Yeah, I actually reread that here about a week or so ago and sent it to Greg. I did not see anywhere in there where it said it only applies to cities over 5,000 population that I could find in the bill. So I think it does apply to Red Lodge after October 1st. Again, I think that, that's after October 1st. Right now, currently, the requirement is what's in the zoning regulations. So, if he submitted a revised site plan to the city with a building permit after October 1st, I think we would have to, comply with that, with the new state law, if that makes sense. So, yeah, I mean, again, that's just, the setback thing is my opinion, my interpretation of the zoning regulations. If the planning board wishes to make a different interpretation of that and put the front yard on Hagen, then Fifth would be considered a side lot line, and the setback would be 6 feet, and we could allow parking within the 6 feet. So that would allow the triplex to move north.
For it.
Yeah, it gives 10 more feet for, lawn and for the tenants. It gives 10 more feet for the tenants to have a backyard. I mean, it's, instead of wasted space.
And it's just more
Sue, do
flexibility
you have any
across the
thoughts?
board.
Yeah.
Sue, do you have any thoughts?
I have all kinds of thoughts, but they all overlap each other.
The overlapping.
I did, they overlap each other. Keeping in mind, I've been confused, is the best word I can think about it, about this particular dilemma ever since we moved to Red Lodge, because we live on a corner lot and the house is diagonal on the corner lot, so you can't really tell what is parallel to what is the front, what is the back, and then we've got a cabin on the lot as well that is oriented a different way. So I'm probably not the best person to inquire from.
Okay. I'm leaning towards, removing the 10 feet off of Fifth Street and allowing more space for the tenants to actually use, as opposed to just having it there. And right across the street is Napa, so it doesn't really affect anything as far as visually.
And, I mean, really, end of the day, like, visually, I don't think it affects anything. I think it's gonna look better. And then, I got a fly just hanging out, sorry, y'all. But, again, I also think that it just makes it more flexible, for the developer to be able to put in, again, more parking spaces or move things around a little bit, just in case he does get the survey back and this plan wouldn't work.
Yeah.
And, also, I think just in terms of our addressing in our side streets, that was one of the concerns we had with readdressing in town, was all the folks that are on Fifth Street or 10th Street. I know the fly is just loving me right now. But that was an issue where we didn't want to have to readdress all those side streets. We'd rather have them on the avenue.
Yes.
So, okay. I'm
Myrna?
talking. Maybe we'll leave.
That's really part of what we need to decide tonight
What's
for
that?
the conditional use.
What's that?
Do we need to decide it tonight for the conditional use?
Possibility we could table it.
I hate to do that. There isn't much time.
I mean, I don't think we necessarily have to decide that for the conditional use. we can, based off the conditions that are provided, we can approve the conditional use, because he has to meet those conditions, and then, again, as they've mentioned, the site plan can change based off of the decision on what side it can get addressed on. Is that true?
I defer to Jeremy. My guess is that if you wanted to change the spacing, that would have to be reflected somehow in tonight's thing. I don't know if it's in a conditional use or what, but.
We'd have to do a variance.
I think that the planning board, I think that the planning board could, in this particular case, make a motion to direct staff to have the front lot line be off Hagan Avenue for this particular zoning application. That's basically your interpretation, and then vote on that, and then once you could do that after the conditional use permit discussion and decision. It doesn't have to be before. Basically, I think that staff would just need direction some point from the planning board on this issue, so that when he submits his final site plan for review, landscaping plans, all the parking plan, all that stuff that's required as a condition, that we know that we're directed by the planning board on what is the front of lot line. So if you wanted to defer that to the next, if you wanted to defer that to the next meeting, you could. It sounds like he's got some work to do, and I don't know that he'll have, final sets of plans and stuff ready in, by the next meeting. So I think that if you wanted to defer that decision to the next meeting, you certainly could.
Would we have to, because that's a motion that wasn't on the agenda, so we would do the conditional and then make that as a motion at the next meeting?
Yeah, because the conditional use permit is for the use. So the planning board is not necessarily approving the site plan. The site plan is just this is just a draft of what the project is gonna, hopefully look like. What the conditional use permit does is it approves the use. So you're making recommendations based on the number of units, or, you're making a decision based on the number of units on the lot. And like I said, the site plan can be tweaked prior to, building permits being issued. So, and as long as everything meets setback requirements, vision triangles, landscaping requirements, lighting requirements, right, parking requirements, all those things that are conditions, then Brian can issue, the building permit. So, again, I think that you could make a decision on the conditional use permit tonight, and not make a recommendation on the front of the lot tonight. You could defer that to the next meeting if you wish to.
Or we could do it tonight.
Or you could do it tonight if you want to make that motion and decision.
I think, but it would be a separate motion, right?
I would say yes. I would say let's just make it a separate motion, as you're basically just directing staff that you've made a determination that the front of the lot at this location is on Hagan Avenue.
All right, so anybody else have any questions? I think what I'm gonna do is move forward with the conditional use motion and defer the discussion on the lot frontage until later. So I'll entertain, I guess we need to make two motions. First is to adopt the staff report. So can I have a motion to adopt the staff?
I move to adopt the staff report RLCU 2025-01 and RLDR 2025-01 as findings of fact.
I'll second.
Okay, there's been a second. Can I have a call for the vote, please?
Gray,
Yes.
Gibbon,
Yes.
Eccles Bell,
Yes.
Foisey,
Yes.
Conley,
Yes.
Di Benedetto.
Yes.
I move to approve the conditional use permit RLCU 2025-01 for a multifamily development to include 2 fourplexes and 1 threeplex located on Red Lodge Original Town Site, Block 64, Lot, I don't think it's Lot LT, but it's Lot 1 amended, Certificate of Survey 1774 in Section 27, Township 7 South, Range 20 East, PMM, subject to the 18 conditions found in the staff report.
I'll second.
And, and we'll do a third motion on the design review, right?
Should I do that one as well? Put the
Now,
two together?
Let's keep them separate.
Okay. So that's the units themselves.
We vote on the last motion you just made, though?
Yeah, but let's have some discussion, I guess. Is there any discussion on the conditional use?
I think it's a great location for multifamily.
Any discussion on any of the conditions?
The conditions all looked good to me.
All right. I was going to suggest adding a sentence to condition 10 on the landscaping, basically to say, to the extent possible, to retain the trees on the south end of the property.
Works for me.
Possible.
Is there any discussion about that?
No, the more trees we can save.
Who makes the decision on,
That
is
is
it possible to retain them?
Yeah, I don't think we necessarily need it. It sounds like he would much rather keep them. Honestly, it's gonna save him money to be able to keep them, right?
I would love to keep as many as I possibly can, and still build as shown on the plan if possible.
Yeah, I just don't wanna make a condition that later down the road becomes a problem.
Anybody else have any comment on that?
I'll put it this way, it costs money to take down trees.
Yeah.
And then plant them again.
Yeah, and then
Those
plant
are
them
developed.
again.
I wanna keep as many as I possibly can. And they're good trees.
Yeah.
Oh, except for that pine tree in the front, it's kinda goofy.
It's funky.
Any other discussion on the conditions? Yes. Go ahead with the vote.
Gray,
Yes.
Tupin,
Yes.
Ecklesdale,
Yes.
Boise,
Yes.
Conley,
Yes.
Di Benedetto,
Yes.
I move to approve the design review permit RLDR 2025-01 for new buildings located on Red Lodge Original Town Site, Block 64, Lot 1 amended, Certificate of Survey 1774, in Section 27, Township 7 South, Range 20 East, PMM, also subject to those 18 conditions.
I'll second.
Any discussion about the design? All right, go ahead and,
Gray,
Yes.
Tupin,
Yes.
Ecklesdale,
Yes.
Boise,
Yes.
Conley,
Yes.
Di Benedetto,
yes.
I move to allow the zoning administrator to say that Hagan would be the front of the property.
Second that. That's a good way to say it. It will allow you to make the decision.
Any discussion?
So I would, if I may, I would maybe word it to say the planning board has determined that the front of the lot line should be Hagan Avenue for the purposes
Okay,
of the zoning application, something like that.
Do we need to have some rationale for that? I guess my concern is setting precedent. If we make an exception here, we have to make an exception everywhere, so I guess I would like to have some rationale for making that recommendation that doesn't preclude us, or putting us in a corner in a future application, that, if there's a way of wording it such a way that this is basically site-specific and not to be interpreted as precedent-setting, I think I would be, go ahead, Brian.
So the site plan currently shows 10 feet off of Hagen. If Fifth Street is the frontage, then the allowance is 6 feet off of Hagen. So that fourplex could actually move 4 feet closer to Hagen. So, I mean, there is some sense of maintaining the avenues as a setback. I mean, that might be helpful to, this one, the example is 10 feet off, but with that Hagen being the side, it does allow that fourplex to move 4 feet closer to Hagen
So
and not
the
stay
ration-
consistent.
So the rationale being to protect the space on Hagen.
Just the,
Yeah, yeah.
that we're,
Protect the
Which we,
facing appearance of the avenue,
right.
the front facing.
I'd like to amend that motion. You ready, Jeremy? I move that the planning board has determined that the front of the property is on Hagen for this specific site.
To protect.
Yeah. So, how about, do you mind if I
Sure.
try? Give it a stab?
Yeah. I'm running out of room of writing, but yes. You
I
move.
make a motion that the planning board has determined that in this instance, the frontage should be on Hagen to preserve the avenue's front-facing appearance. We could add an "and" to that, but I'll just leave it at that.
I would second that if,
Does that sound good, Jeremy? He's making a face. It's hard to see it.
Yeah, I think that sounds fine. I mean, yeah, I guess I don't really have any. Yeah, I think it sounds fine.
I mean, we'll address this, Jeremy, when we move forward with the, you know, the zoning recommendations as well. Because we've got to tighten it up anyway.
Yeah.
Correct.
So it's gonna be a moot point in the future, possibly.
well, I would second Chelsea's motion.
Okay. And then I'm on the one on the books that messed it up, it's later, so there we go.
Any more discussion about that? Jeremy, you have any more comments?
Nope, I mean, I think the way that the zoning regulations are currently written, it's open to some interpretation anyways. So, I mean, I think that, you know, adding in that your determination is that, you know, to protect the, you know, Hagen Avenue frontage, basically, to get, you know, keep the buildings further back. I think that's fine. I think that works, and we can review it, you know, review future plans against that recommendation.
You know, we also have in our zoning that the front setbacks should match up to the adjoining property in order to maintain consistency within that block and not have something that's out of.
But I'm not sure in the commercial zone, that's true. I know in a residential zone, it's a 25-foot setback.
Prevailing setback.
And then we have prevailing setbacks.
C2 doesn't have.
C2 does not have prevailing setbacks. That was my
Okay, that's
poor memory.
But it's part of your logic when you're explaining why too, though.
Yeah, I think there's and just for like record's sake, the same way every time I talk. I think that we have a multitude of reasons for making the decision. And so that can be something that's weighed out if this came down the line again, because, again, one is to preserve that frontage on Hagen. One is to provide some flexibility for workforce housing, which goes with our growth policy. One is to make it a more attractive street front with prevailing setbacks that match, even though that's not necessarily consistent with C2. It is something that we can find within our other zoning code. But again, I think there's a multitude of reasons for this to make sense, and so if it is something that needs to be disputed later down the road, or someone wants to bring it, like, this is all of the reasons we did this, there was multiple criteria, not just one or the other.
Well, it adds that 10-foot, between the buildings,
Yeah.
which is really important, and I agree,
It's for quality of life.
yeah.
So maybe add one more, put an add to that,
Yeah, I was gonna say, we could do an ad.
to be consistent with the frontage of the other residences within that block.
I will amend my motion to include, to stay consistent with the other frontages of the block and to provide higher quality of life for residents.
And we could actually put in the same wording that we use in the residential zones.
Prevailing setback?
But we don't know what the prevailing setback is in that area,
I
so
don't think you need to get into that.
What's that?
I
I
do.
don't think you need to get into that.
I wish
Yeah.
we'd have like 18 words.
I'm worried about the prevailing setback, whole deal. It's not in C2, so let's not go there.
I was just saying the wording that it talks about,
That, where it says, where portions of a block have been developed shall be consistent with the existing homes, is that the wording you're looking
that's
for?
the wording I'm looking for.
Oh, yeah, what line is that?
But we don't know what the, but we don't know, I think we'll get in trouble there. We don't know what the existing homes are on that block. So if we start looking at prevailing, we're in trouble.
So how about we just make it consistent with our growth policy? Because that's something that prevails over everything.
Yeah, I don't think we want to do that.
I think we should leave it the way that
We're
you
good?
stated it, and
Round two, stating my amended version of the motion of Chelsea rambling on.
that's the one.
I'm happy to go on record for that.
So what's the motion again?
Good luck with this one, Greg.
I need to just get a recorder. I make a motion that the planning board has determined that in this instance, the property's frontage should be, or addressing should be on Hagan Avenue.
The frontage is right.
Frontage.
The frontage is on Hagan Avenue to maintain the avenue frontage as well as, what's the-
Increasing the quality of living,
Increasing quality of life, and then Jeff had something,
but he was talking prevailing.
Yeah,
okay, then,
yeah.
and increasing the quality of life for residents.
Second,
I second.
any more discussion?
Glad these are recorded.
Can we have a vote?
They are too.
Gray,
Yes.
Tucson,
Yes.
Echo Bell,
Yes.
Boise,
Yes.
Conley,
Yes.
Di Benedetto.
I'm gonna vote no, just because of the precedent setting that I'm worried about. Otherwise, it seems like a reasonable compromise.
Perfect.
I'm good with that.
Motion carries. You're set.
All right. Guess it's 7:30, so the rest of the agenda is,
Somewhere in this mess.
For later.
I guess, public comment on any other agenda items. Is there any other public comment from the audience? From the online folks?
No comments online, Mr. Chair?
All right. Old business was to review the 2025 zoning regulation updates with WWC Engineering. Given it's 7:30, I'm gonna recommend that we postpone the discussion until the next planning board meeting, if that is okay with everybody.
Sounds great.
All All right, written correspondence, staff communications and update.
We just had 2 conditional use pre-application meetings today. Their applications are in, they're fairly complete, we think, so we're gonna do completeness reviews, and they'll probably be in the 2 meetings in October, is what we were thinking, right, Jeremy?
Correct, yeah, I think, either the 8th or the 22nd of October. We're gonna shoot for the 8th for those conditional use permits, but depending on completeness reviews and noticing and stuff, one of them may spill over into the 22nd meeting.
All right. Mayor, do you have any comments?
Nothing further, Mr. Chairman?
All right. I'll, adjourn the meeting.